Okay.
Good morning, Karen.
Hi, Charles. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. I'm going to try and send you some pictures of my art and have you critique them.
Well, that would be good.
Yeah, I would like that. I keep meaning to. I'd like to see how you critique, and I've not been able. I don't know. I forget. That's all.
I see. Okay. Hey, Bob. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well for a Monday. I mean,
Yeah.
it is Monday.
It is a Monday. Yes. How well we are all feeling that, I think. Yes.
There you go.
But happy to be here at least.
Oh, absolutely. That's right. Happy to be anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As they say, above ground, you're doing good. So
Right.
And
Still
vertical. And vertical.
and vertical. That helps too. That's an add-on, that luxury.
Mhm. Yeah. But so anybody do anything fun this weekend? Yeah.
Did a little drawing, but that's about it.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even do that. So, yeah, lazy weekend.
Okay. Did you do anything else fun? Other than drawing?
No, been watching a lot of TV,
Ah,
Netflix, and different ones.
all right. Yeah. You mind if I get nosy and ask what are you watching on Netflix?
Inventing Anna.
Okay.
It's basically a true story,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a disclaimer up front it's very clever. It says this is a true story, except for those things that are totally false.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but then every episode they have that in a different place. It may be on the side of a building or whatever. So I end up looking for it. But it is a true story, and it's that woman, I can't remember her name, young woman, who also played in Ozark.
Okay.
Did you watch Ozark?
Yeah, I have. I've seen. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's the young one with the curly blonde hair.
Yeah.
You wouldn't recognize her. She's
Right.
really different. And then I started watching another movie, and I can't find it now because I pretty much have all the things. And I started watching another movie, and she was the star of that. She's really an up and comer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, in Inventing Anna, I'm wondering if because I watched one on Netflix where she was a chess player.
Oh, was that her too?
I can't. Yeah, I don't know who the actress was, but
Okay, yeah, I
remember that.
did watch that.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
that was a really good series.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, and have you watched Call Saul?
Oh yeah, I love that.
Oh yeah, that
Better
was.
Call Saul. Yeah,
Yeah, Better Call Saul.
yeah.
They've had some good things on. Yeah.
They sure do. They sure do. What was I going to say here? Charles, well, I'm going off on another tangent now. Hang on one second. I want to show you something.
Okay. Ah, Veronica made it. Okay.
The book, Provenance.
Oh, okay.
It is wonderful. And I thought, what a wonderful, even if it was just one session or something to teach about, because this is about art fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you kind of real. It's true story too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very interesting. It's kind of written like a novel, but it's a true story. And it makes you think that, half the stuff that goes through Christie's and, the other big places are fraud.
Yeah.
Because nobody will admit to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Certainly Christie's won't
Right.
admit that they put something through, that they didn't check out the provenance well. And the people who buy them, don't want to feel like they were, first of all, they spent millions on these paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And then to find out that it's fake,
Right.
it's a fascinating book.
Yep. Yeah, we've watched a couple of videos about that very thing, about
Really?
art forgeries.
Yeah.
And how, like, in some of like these big auction houses and things in New York, they'll sell something and then it becomes kind of questionable.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the big things like right now, just recently, Jean-Paul Basquiat,
Yeah.
the FBI just came in and seized a whole lot of work in this one collection, because
Really?
they're saying that most of them, or the vast majority of them, are fakes.
No kidding. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, that just happened like last month.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it was some really prominent, African American entertainer. And
Really?
it was in his collection, him and his wife's collection, and they just seized like the whole collection. It was weird. It was like,
wow.
Yeah, just out of the blue. So, but there's a lot of that stuff that goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. You have no idea, and
Mm-hmm.
and again, some of the famous people that, that are forged,
Mm-hmm.
we just never know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's stories about a good number of the Van Goghs that are hanging in some of the museums are actually forgeries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, by this guy who did it. I think he did it like in the 30s or the 40s.
Uh-huh.
An English forger, but he specialized in Van Goghs.
No kidding.
That was his thing. And they have a very difficult time, telling the work that he did away, different than actual Vincent Van Gogh. And a lot of it, though, is the way they weeded a lot of that out, though, was when they came across the letters to Theo, because Van Gogh wrote a lot about what he was working on and stuff. And so
Yeah.
able to go back and kind of authenticate, a fair amount of his stuff. So, anyway, we will pursue this another time.
Yeah.
But today, guess what we're going to do today?
Inspire ourselves.
Yes.
We're going to discuss politics.
Well, no, nobody's talking about politics. we were talking about art.
Religion?
No.
No, we're staying. Well, we're going to stay away from politics, religion, sex, and food.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, because those have all gotten to be hot topic issues in the world these days. And so best just to steer clear of them.
Tell us about the future, Charles.
Say what?
Tell us about the future.
Tell you about the future?
Yes.
Well, it's funny that you asked about that, because actually I'm going to share with you, and I threatened to do this a couple of weeks ago, and then last week we didn't get far enough. Well, this week we're there. So I am going to share with you some current art movements, okay? But before we do that, I need to take all of you back to kind of really one of the first, what you could say would be, you know, one of the very first modern art movements, okay? So we're looking at post-impressionism, right? And later, okay?
Okay.
So we're gonna do a little history lesson on the Secessionist movement, and then we're gonna go into several artists who kind of came after that and what they're doing, okay? So, hope you got a cup of coffee.
What else are you gonna put us to sleep?
No,
That's a
I'm
nice
not.
building.
I'm not, but you know, heck,
Those
Wow, my
buildings-
house.
it wouldn't, yes, right. It
Oh,
wouldn't,
yeah.
it wouldn't be
We'll
unheard
be right
of.
over.
It wouldn't be unheard of, you know, to have somebody snoring in the background. All right, so away we go.
When people hear the word
Okay. Well, let's try this again.
when people hear the words Vienna, they think of Gustav Klimt and his famous paintings. But there is much more to this artistic movement. It brought innovations to Austrian architecture, graphic arts, and furniture design. Grab a seat in the Curious News time machine and let's travel back to the end of the 19th century. If you'd like to see more episodes on art on this channel, be sure to give us a like and tell us which topics you want to learn about next. In 1897, a new artistic group was formed in Vienna. Its founding members included Josef Maria Olbrich, Josef Hoffmann, and Koloman Moser, among others, while the famous Gustav Klimt was named the group's president, and the Vienna Secession was born.
Can
These
you turn it up? The noise. So,
wanted to bring new artistic trends to Austria. For inspiration, they turned to Western Europe. They looked at the art made by the French Impressionists.
Okay.
And they wanted to discover and represent
Okay, that's pretty loud. Okay, let's go back a little.
turned to Western Europe.
That's fine.
The art made by the German Jugendstil artists and the English pre-Raphaelites. The artists of the Vienna Secession revolted against tradition and conservative ideas on art. They fiercely
There you go. All right, come on. Why the sound goes in and out? I guess when I'm on,
looked at the art
Zoom.
made by the French Impressionists
I have no idea.
and the English pre-Raphaelites. The artists of the Vienna Secession revolted against tradition and conservative ideas on art. They fiercely rejected historicism, and they wanted to discover and represent the ideas of a new, modern man. In the words of another Secession member, the architect Otto Wagner, these artists aimed to show the modern man his true face. The Vienna Secessionists believed that art should be everywhere, so they aimed to create something called Gesamtkunstwerk, or a total work of art that included every aspect of one's life. So, not just painting, but architecture, furniture, fabrics, ceramics, and glassware too. The members of the Vienna Secession also founded a magazine called Ver Sacrum, meaning Sacred Spring. Writers, poets, and designers were all featured in the magazine. For the first issue of Ver Sacrum, Klimt created a drawing named Nuda Veritas, or The Naked Truth. In Nuda Veritas, the artist showed a woman holding up a mirror to the modern man. The magazine always aimed to promote the rebirth of the artistic scene in Vienna. The group also became known for their exhibitions that were entirely dedicated to the art of the movement. Until 1905, 23 secession exhibitions were held in total. For the first Vienna secession exhibition, Klimt created a poster showing the myth of Theseus. The Austrian artist often used mythology and classical symbols as an inspiration for his works of art. All of the secession exhibitions were held at the famous Secession building. The architect Josef Maria Olbricht designed the Secession's main building that looks just like a temple. This way, art is presented as important as religion. This mesmerizing building has huge white walls, no windows, and a fascinating jewel on the roof, a sphere made out of big golden leaves that is also referred to as the golden cabbage. The philosophy of the movement is inscribed on the building itself. Der Zeit ihre Kunst, der Kunst ihre Freiheit, meaning to each age its art, to art its freedom. Inside the Secession building lies Klimt's Beethoven frieze from 1901 that has many ornaments, golden details, mythical monsters with snakes for hair, and figures that represent death, evil, and grief. Or, on a lighter note, poetry itself, especially in the detail known as This Kiss to the Whole World. The piece celebrated Beethoven and his famous Ninth Symphony and Friedrich Schiller's Ode to Joy.
I am here, farm, where the magic begins. We grow the baby plants.
Beethoven was seen as a misunderstood genius artist.
Okay.
Entirely devoted to the famous German composer.
Yeah. I think it has something to do with, YouTube and Zoom.
Session's 14th exhibition was entirely devoted to German composer. Like in the women Klimt painted often had long hair and looked almost like mythical beings and mermaids. Erotic and sensual, they represented the femme fatale that were dangerous to men, like Judith or Salome. Klimt was representing the anxieties of modern men in a new world where gender relations were starting to change more and more. Another architect affiliated with the movement, Otto Wagner, designed buildings in the Secession style. One of his famous works is known as the Majolica House. The gorgeous building has a facade entirely filled with colourful tiles, with floral motifs designed by Alois Ludwig. During the time that was also known as the fin de siècle, or the end of the century, Austria got its very own form of Art Nouveau in the Vienna Secession. Just like Art Nouveau, the Vienna Secession architectural style featured curvy lines, floral motifs, and organic ornamental designs. Wagner also designed an entrance to a train station known as Karlsplatz Stadtbahn Station. Golden, floral, and geometrical motifs resemble those seen in the architecture of Art Nouveau. Now that was a stylish way to use the subway. Today, the Eastern Pavilion functions as a cafe and the Western Pavilion as an exhibition space. The 18th exhibition of the Vienna Secession was dedicated entirely to the works of Gustav Klimt. This was Klimt's first solo exhibition. Klimt, whose father was an engraver, entered the School of Arts and Crafts at the age of 14. In his early works, the artist showed a great talent for historical painting, and he painted the interiors of important buildings like the Burgtheater. Klimt even sneaked in an image of himself as a member of the audience here. Klimt's best-known work is most definitely a painting called The Kiss, and you've probably seen it a million times before on posters, t-shirts or mugs. While the painting was made in 1908 after Klimt left the Secession group, the work still features a number of its core characteristics. The loving pair in the painting even resembles the one we see embracing in Klimt's Beethoven frieze in the Secession building a bit. Klimt used real gold and real silver in this work, and the ornamental design took center stage. The kiss represents the crown jewel of Klimt's golden phase, which was influenced by his visit to Ravenna and the golden mosaics he saw in the San Vitale church while there. In 1903, Hoffmann and Moser formed the Vienna Workshops, an association dedicated to creating utilitarian objects and crafts. And 2 years later, in 1905, Klimt left the Secession group. The Secession continued to exist, but its impact grew smaller. Today, however, the Vienna Secession represents one of the most important eras of Austrian modern art. Tourists and art lovers enjoy visiting the Secession building, while pretty much everyone loves to look for Klimt's alluring artworks in museums. Vienna Secession aimed to show that art could and should be part of one's everyday life. Looking at all these artworks of different kinds can help us get a glimpse of what it was like to live in end-of-the-century Vienna. So, what do you think about the Vienna Secession? Do you like Klimt's art? How do you feel about his femme fatale? What about Vienna's modernist architecture that we saw here? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram for your regular dose of culture from Curious News. If you'd like to support us, you can now do so.
Okay. So what did everybody think of that?
I'm embarrassed to say that I did not realize that it was a movement.
Oh, okay.
You know, I just thought Klimt, of course, most people know who he is, but I didn't realize that there was a whole movement behind there, and those buildings look beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Now I have a question and this is for everybody in the class, if anybody knows. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we gotta put an end to that. Okay. I said stop. Okay. Sorry, Wilhelm. You're not taking center stage yet. So my question is, what other art movement that predated the Vienna Secessionists had that same basic tenet or philosophy about art being life, or part of your everyday life? Anybody have any ideas about that?
I remember you showed us something that influenced across different venues and things, but I can't remember what it was.
Come on. Put on your thinking caps. Anybody?
I'm in John's camp. I remember some pieces, but I don't remember the movement name.
Okay, it's called the Arts and Crafts Movement.
I was gonna say prairie.
Huh?
I was gonna say prairie.
Well, now, the Prairie School was the later part of the Arts and Crafts Movement that happened in America. And arts and crafts actually started around the 1830s and didn't end almost until the 1940s in America.
Wow.
It was a very long-lived art movement that really influenced just about, certainly Art Nouveau, certainly the Secessionists, the Pre-Raphaelites, all of those people were all influenced by the arts and crafts movement. Anybody know where the arts and crafts movement actually began?
Seems like it would be American.
No, it was not.
Ooh.
Yes. Back in the 1830s, it was actually in Scotland.
Really?
Yes, yes. By a designer and a gentleman by the name of Rennie Mackintosh. he was one of the first arts and crafts artists. Okay. But there was what arts and crafts was all about. It was a backlash against the industrialization of England and most of Europe, how people were leaving the farm and coming into the city, and the furniture and the things that they were buying were all of this stuff that was being mass produced in factories. And they were just, making like, thousands of copies of dinnerware and furniture and textiles and stuff. And, they were cheap, and everybody, because of the fact that they were easily accessible and not, not expensive, a lot of laborers and workers would buy it. And it was kind of in a way, it was a good thing, because it definitely gave people, access to, inexpensive, everyday items that they needed. But but this group of artists kind of observed that the quality of life itself, began to dissipate, and began to become less than what it was, because people didn't have daily contact with things that individual people had made by hand, using their skills and things like that. And it's a very different aesthetic to live with things that are made by hand versus something that's pumped out of a factory. And it's kind of like the equivalent today of anytime you go to the store and you look at the bottom of any kind of ceramic or anything else, it was made somewhere in Southeast Asia, right? A lot of times in China, right? Because the production is very cheap, right? And so they're just kind of flooding the world with this stuff. And so the arts and crafts movement was all about not doing that, about making things that are personal and individual and sort of reflect your particular taste rather than, just this mass type stuff that was put out there. But that's kind of what got the whole ball rolling was, the arts and crafts movement. And the arts and crafts movement actually didn't come to America until probably about the 1870s, probably the mid to late 1870s. Because remember, during the 1860s, we had a lot of stuff going on over here. We had this whole Civil War thing going on, and not much happened, as far as art movements and things in America, really until after that kind of got over. Because anybody who was an artist, basically fled to Europe, which is why you got John Singer Sargent, Mary Cassatt, all of those American artists who later became American Impressionists. They left this country to go to Paris during that period of time in the 1860s to avoid being caught up in the Civil War. So, and there were lots of them. Lots of people fled to Europe to get away from that, because a lot of, just like during the Vietnam War, we had a bunch of people pack up and go to Canada, right? They really didn't want to get caught up, in that whole thing. So better to leave. So they did. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to share with you is we're going to begin to look at some individual artists and how, this little sessionist movement, how it went from the sessionist to all of these other artists. Okay. Now, remember, okay, Vienna, you had the Sessionist movement, but you also had the birth of a, we'll call it a medical field called psychiatry, right? Yeah. Anybody remember this guy by the name of Freud?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he was actually in Vienna, in Austria, and a lot of these sessionist artists would sit around and talk to him, about what was going on with psychiatry and stuff. Well, interestingly enough, he had a child who became an artist. Okay. So let me introduce you to, I believe it's his son, or it may be his grandson, Lucian Freud. Okay. I need to check on that. Okay. Any thoughts about any of that?
He certainly was prolific.
People here
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Some of his portraits almost have a paint by number look to him. You know, he doesn't blend
Hmm.
in, which I find very interesting. Those are probably my favorites. You know.
there is much more to this artistic
I'm
movement.
sorry.
It brought innovations to Austrian architecture.
Yes, we've already been there. Thank you.
But his models never seemed to be very happy or content. And,
There you go.
I wouldn't be content modeling for him.
Okay. Okay, now are you talking just about the figure models, or are you talking about, you know, the portraits and the figure models?
pretty much
Are you
all of
talking-
it. Yeah,
Well,
but
to me, the figure models, I just, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. So Armando's off talking to somebody. So does anybody have, I mean, did anybody have a particular reaction to them? I mean, how did they make you feel?
kind of dull.
Okay.
Not sure that's the right expression, but it just they were interesting paintings. The portraits that were for the most part drab or just didn't inspire me to I mean the work was good, the rendering was good, the impressionism was good, but it just didn't excite me all that much.
It was almost irritating.
Ah, okay. So you got somebody who's dull, somebody who's maybe irritated. Anybody else?
I really liked some of the portraits, those paint by number type, as I said. I really liked those. I thought those were very interesting.
Okay. Anybody else?
Those
Veronica?
made me think about Naomi's work.
Uh-huh. Yeah, actually, yeah, there are some similarities. Yeah. Eloise, Veronica.
I think they were kind of unattractive. They weren't, I guess I'm used to looking for beauty in art, and they were not beautiful to me. They were not positive, not paintings that would inspire me.
Uh-huh. Okay. How about you, Veronica?
He had a huge body of work. It looked like everyday people, all shapes, all sizes. They were inclusive to me on that level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, did he do sketches first, then paint?
Yes.
What was his process?
Mm-hmm. Well, we saw samples of some of the drawings and then later on the paint.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he had a particular process that he worked through. And oftentimes when he was painting like a portrait, he wouldn't paint just one. He'd paint 3 or 4 at a time. And he would sort of modify it and change it in different ways. But let me kind of, I guess, tell you a little bit about him. Okay, first of all, you know that, you know, he's a descendant, a relative of Freud, the psychologist, right? Psychotherapist. And one of the things, you know, I get, you know, a little of the history behind all of that is that, remember, Freud was around in Vienna about the time of the Secessionist movement, which was in the early 1900s, right? And Sigmund Freud lived until, I think, the at least 1940s, maybe 1950s, before he passed away. But he had to pack up
Hey, Harry, how you doing?
and leave Austria.
Fine, I haven't heard about I've been thinking about you the other day. How's everybody? Betty, the kids?
Armando, I need to mute you, okay? All right. He had to flee Austria because of World War One. Okay, which happened, you know, right around what 1915, 1917, right? And that went on for a few years. And Freud left Europe, you know, to go to England, Britain, and sort of resettled there. And that's where Lucian basically painted and lived, I think, most of his life. And remember, too, if you look at the time frame, you know, that Lucian painted, it was like pre-World War II and post-World War II. So a lot of, he's basically capturing a lot of the mood, you know, and the feeling, you know, that sort of heavy, sort of depressive feel of England, you know, going through those periods of time. So his work reflected, you know, sort of the society around him. And like his, I think it was his grandfather before him, he was very interested, not in just the physical features of the person, but trying to capture something about the psychology or the personality of each of his models, you know. And he definitely reflected that whole sort of, I guess, modern angst. You know, life was getting faster and faster. You know, people were struggling, you know, to maintain their social bonds and things like that. A lot of people were moving from place to place, trying to resettle, you know, their life and try to start over again. So there was a lot of turmoil. So that's just a little of the background. Yeah.
Was he part of a movement?
Yes, he would be part of, he would be considered a representational painter. And he was one of the few, you know, by comparison, artists of that period that was still doing what you would call representational art. And without artists like him, remember that most of the art world had kind of left and gone into abstraction, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, there was a long period of time during his career that if you weren't doing abstract art, well, you know, you were relegated to, you know, by the critics of not even counting or not even making what, you know, they considered art at the time. And so, you know, he struggled through that period like a lot of representational artists.
By the way, he is the grandson of Sigmund Freud.
Yeah, the grandson. Okay. Yeah. I knew it was somewhere down the line there. Yeah. At any rate, and it, you know, when you look at his work and you get some background behind him, you can see, you know, why he was doing what he was doing. You know, it, you know, there was an actual intent there in the process of making those paintings. So,
but when you say representational, mm-hmm. I'm not so sure what that means. I mean, weren't the early painters mm-hmm. representational?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You would call them representational, or you know, I mean, traditional artists painted things that you could recognize, right?
Yeah. I mean, he had a different look to his paintings,
right? Yes,
than the early paintings, but
yeah, definitely very modern, very mm-hmm. kind of direct and sort of harsh, almost. Where, and I think it was Eloise who brought this up. when you think about classical artists, what were they trying to do? They were trying to, one, illustrate or tell a story, most of them historical,
Mm-hmm.
Or classical, like Greek or Roman mythology. And they were trying to create something beautiful, right? That was never Freud's intent. He was trying to capture sort of this feeling, this mood of society in the modern era, and something of the angst, within society during that period of time. And it was reflected through the people that he painted.
So many people say that the body, the nude body, is so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't make it so.
Well, again, yes, he's not trying to soften it and make it a pretty picture.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to give you kind of a harsh dose of reality, which is, as Veronica pointed out, he painted people who are all shapes and sizes and ages, and this is reality. I mean, we don't all look like classical Greek goddesses and gods, right?
Don't. Now you tell me.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
Well, and if you do, that's good for you, okay? But there's a lot of folks out there walking around that don't fit that mold quite. Yeah. So, but
and that it's almost like he was depicting the common person rather than royalty and things like that some of the other representative artists did.
Right. Yeah. No, he was very much so, like I said, his whole focus was all about reflecting, contemporary society around him. And a lot of those people would have been working class, common people, and not, the lords and ladies and, all of the upper crust, at that period of time. So, yeah. And, if you think about modernism, right, of which he would fall under, even though he's a representational artist, his work shares a lot in common with all the other modern art movements, which is somewhere along the line of surrealism. Basically, artists gave up that tenet of trying to create beauty, and making that the main focus and goal. And they started trying to have what they felt were real conversations about the world that they lived in and how they saw it, and how they saw themselves fitting into that. Okay. So, and that has run, pretty consistently, really, ever since, really post World War II. Even representational, or what we call realist painters today, still have a bit of that. It's not about, making it pretty. It's not about making it all smooth and blended. And, it's about maybe got a little more of an edge to it. Makes you kind of look at it and ask questions about really what's going on. What am I really seeing, right?
These wouldn't necessarily be commissioned paintings.
Some of them were, actually. Some of them were, but a lot of them were not. He found a following. He was immensely popular in the kind of from about the mid 1950s through about the 1970s, I think. His work was really very, very popular and highly collected. So, yeah. Anybody else got any comments or questions or anything else before we move on from Lucian Freud?
Yeah, I was almost thinking it's sort of reminiscent of the Bolshevik revolution, again, of the common people rather than the aristocracy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously he was, many years after that, but
Correct. Right. Yeah.
and in a totally different place. But yeah, it's the same aesthetic, the same kind of, thought, behind it all. Okay. So guess where we're going to go from here? We're going to go further down the rabbit hole. So
Oh. Not going to go to Disney, huh?
no, unfortunately, there's no way back for the rest of the day. Yes, we have definitely taken the blue pill. Okay. And so, yes, we are going to continue on. All right. So this is a gentleman, by the name of Max Nordberg or something like that. Anyway, he's a symbolist painter. Come on. All right.
This is the opposite of Freud.
Yeah, kind of. But hang on. See. All right. So, yes, very different than Lucian Freud, right?
Mhm.
And look at this time period. He was born mid 18, almost 1860, and died in 1922, right? And so he was kind of like one of the last, one of the group or the last vestiges of what you would call classical realism. And so he was still doing what they would call, more or less historical painting, right? A lot of his stuff was about mythology, the Greek gods, and again, his point was to try to make a beautiful painting, right? And give you this, this feeling that, there's something magical, about, the image or the person involved there, right? And so again, very, very different than Freud. And that would have been, if you read the little subtitles down there, he basically came from a very traditional classical art background. Went through the academy, was classically trained. So he was a lot like, Bouguereau, okay? And in his style and his approach, he just didn't do it, the same way, or in my opinion, as well as Bouguereau did it. So, but that's, everybody has their opinion about such stuff, right? Did you like that better, Eloise?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much.
Okay. All
Kind
right.
of softened the edges a little bit.
Yes, he did. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We could get into the technical aspects of his paintings versus Freud's. And yeah, he did a lot of blending and, softened a lot of stuff out, so it was a lot of hard, soft edges. Again, a very traditional way of approaching, painting. So let's see. Moving on. I got some doozies in here for you guys coming up. All right. So from there, let's go to this guy who is described as a dystopian artist.
This life-saving.
Yeah, we don't know about this. Ads. Come on. Go away.
Let me tell you the tragic life story of Zdzisław.
Come on, please say that name.
Was born in Poland in
Here, let's go back. Boy, this is quick. All right.
Let me tell you the tragic life story of Zdzisław Beksinski, a man famous for his dystopian surrealism. Beksinski was born in Poland in 1929, 10 years before the German-Soviet invasion of Poland began. During this time, the entire world bore witness to a dystopian nightmare, but Poland especially so. Beksinski himself had no formal artistic education. The first artistic medium in which he gained some fame was photography. Through the 1960s, after disrupting the photography world, he would focus more on his paintings. It was during this time that he made brilliant works like Untitled or Untitled, as if he couldn't get any more lovably mysterious. Before moving to Warsaw in 1977, he burned a selection of his works in his own backyard. He later claimed that some of these works were too personal. Beksinski's wife, Zofia, died in 1998. A year later, on Christmas Eve 1999, his son Tomac committed suicide by drug overdose. On the 21st of February 2005, Beksinski was found dead in his flat in Warsaw with 17 stab wounds on his body.
Nope. I guess that was it. Yeah, it's kind of short.
That's quick.
Yes, it was. It was very quick. But what do you guys think of that work?
The narrator spoke fast.
Yeah, but I'm saying the work.
Oh,
Extremely morbid.
Yes,
Yeah.
very
But
dark.
didn't it seem surreal?
Yes.
Wouldn't he be part of the surreal?
Well, and they described some of his work as being surreal. Yes. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, but definitely on the darker side. I mean, Salvador Dali looks like, a birthday party in comparison to.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't like Salvador Dali either.
Right, but
I like it.
but if you compare the two, this guy was a lot darker, a lot darker and definitely, in a very, very, dark place in his mind,
Right.
and what he was seeing.
He
And
needs a psychiatrist.
well, yes. And if Freud had not already left, before, he probably could have had one, there in Poland, but. Yeah, most of them packed up and left. So, Yeah, because they didn't like that whole, you know, World War I, World War II thing going on. So, all right. Anybody else before we move on?
Well, yeah, all the time when they're showing some of those guys, it's a name that come there, Lucian Freud. Freud or Freud, whatever. And I went on that, and that guy, the only he did was male nudity.
Who? Lucian Freud?
Yes.
Where you obviously didn't sit through.
But
Yeah.
I went through in Google, it's just only naked men.
No. You didn't sit through the whole thing, because actually the vast majority of what he did was actually portraits and then female nudes. He did a lot of male nudes, but he didn't just do male nudes. Okay.
Let's see with him.
So, all right. Anybody else?
I question why Max would burn all of his artwork after all those hours. And is it part of the mental illness, or is it narcissism? What is it?
It may have been, you know, some form of mental illness. But remember too that Monet, remember that Monet in the early period, right? You know, if you look at his work, you know, it's very pretty, it's very bright, you know, lovely colors, things like that. And then as he got older, because of the cataracts, a lot of his work got kind of dark. And the Water Lily series came out of that. The ones that were at the high, the really big paintings that are at the Orsay. But, you know, that's because he couldn't see as well. He was almost blind. And then, you know, he packed himself up and he actually traveled to America and went to New Orleans, and there was a doctor who performed cataract surgery on him. It was like one of the early cataract surgeries, and, you know, corrected his vision, of which he could begin to see again, you know, actually quite well. And when he went back to France and started painting again, he too gathered up a large body of his work that he felt at that point was inferior.
Don't like it anymore.
Yeah, well, he thought it was inferior, and he burned it and destroyed,
Right.
you know, a large portion of the paintings that he'd done. He only kept the ones that, you know, he felt were worthy of, you know, being shown. You know, artists do that sometimes. You know, they go through these periods of, you know, self-assessment, and, you know, some artists treat it as, I guess my viewpoint would be, it was part of the process that got me to where, you know, I ended up at. And so it's relevant, you know, through, you know, my personal history of where I started and where I ended. Other artists have the viewpoint of, you know, they don't want people to see that. You know, they only want them to see their very best, right? You know, I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong. You know,
Georgia O'Keeffe burnt a lot of her paintings, but she was not happy with them. They went and fired.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. My frustration level has almost led me to that point in painting.
You can keep yourself warm. I can keep myself warm in the wintertime.
Right.
Oh, wow.
There you go. So, yeah, I mean, you know, and I mean, you know, both arguments are valid, you know, depending on who you ask, you know, a lot of gallery owners, collectors, you know, people in museums and things like that, you know, would basically agree with that philosophy that, really, as an artist, you should only show your very best stuff, you know, and never show anything that's less than that. You know, I don't know that I buy into that personally, but you know, to each their own. So, of course, you know, I don't have a lot of work in museums either, so maybe that's why. Anyway, anybody got any other thoughts about that discussion? We need to go any further with that?
No.
All right. Going to continue down the rabbit hole.
Keep traveling.
Yep. Keep on moving. If nothing else, you guys are going to see quite a bit of art. Okay. So, yes, this guy.
If you find exercise,
Yeah. Come on. There it is. Oh, wait a minute. Let's start him back at the beginning.
Wow.
Yeah. Built in front of the house.
What happened?
An octopus eating the house.
And his car. He's going to have to take the bus today.
Look at his clouds. That's interesting.
That looked like a tornado to me. Yes, it's a tornado.
Yep, tornado in the background.
But she's happy.
Not for long.
That's the light before it gets dark.
There we go.
Oh my goodness.
These are fascinating.
Oh, I need a small house like that one.
Sure has a thing for tornadoes.
Mm-hmm. And the man is sitting in front of the house, he doesn't even notice it.
Overgrown R2-D2.
Looks a little more menacing than that, though, doesn't it?
It does.
Actually, I think it came out of one of the 1940s or 1950s sci-fi.
McDonald's.
That's a Ronald McDonald
Holding up Ronald.
pulling a gun to somewhere about it.
That's unusual.
Merry-go-round and a bride, you know, on one of the horses. Another bride.
Ooh.
Coyotes. Wolves, I don't know.
Very mysterious. Game over.
What is that?
A scorpion in the background?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a big scorpion. Yeah.
Mm.
He had a warped sense of humor.
Or maybe no humor.
Or maybe no humor.
Oh, gross.
Ugh.
Yeah, evidently went to go see Jurassic Park.
I guess.
Ugh.
But notice who they're eating.
Is that him?
No. but you know, the guy doesn't look like a common everyday guy. He looks like kind of a business guy, banker.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Big bird.
Yeah, you could call those big birds.
Lordy, lordy, a black big bird. That house must be the house he lived in, because I did board painting that same house. Red roof and then a green roof.
Well, there's lots of little houses like that all over America.
Yeah, I know.
Mhm.
But I did board painting the same house. To me, it's the same house.
Did he ever explain his affinity for tornadoes?
Well, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Maybe he's from the tornado alley.
Mhm.
Or maybe he's not. Maybe he's trying to say something.
Oh.
And if so, what possibly could he be saying?
Everybody has storms in their life.
Right.
The
Tell me
quiet
about it.
before the storm.
Yeah. Going into a storm or out of a storm?
Or maybe, you know, people are kind of asleep in life, kind of going through life, and there's a storm coming.
Mhm.
Unexpected.
Star Wars character, Boba the Fett.
Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Charles, that, you know, everybody's just going along in their life and it's good. And I don't know what this is, but then, you know, all of a sudden
He has
there's,
to pay for bribes for some reason.
yeah.
Evidently, brides have a certain symbolic meaning.
Man, in terrible weather.
Charles, who is this again?
John somebody.
Yeah.
John
Rothschild.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and get
Yeah,
his.
there's Jurassic Park with the exploding volcano.
He is a contemporary painter. He is alive and working.
Oh, yeah. Well, for the model of the car, yes. You see,
Pardon?
for the car that he is in that paint, you can see his.
Yeah.
September
Yes, he's definitely painting his time. With the Taco Bells and everything else. And he's certainly
Must live in Tornado Row.
Yeah, well, he's certainly painting what we might consider middle America. I mean,
Notice on some of his buildings, he paints what they are. There's a donut building, there was a liquor building, there was a something else kind of building.
Yeah.
See, there's the liquor building. There's 2 or 3 different labels he's put on them.
out in the wheat field.
Wouldn't be outside watching a tornado that close.
Mhm.
Good luck, lady.
Or a large iguana, walking through your town
Yeah.
in the evening.
Boy.
likes to do, you know, people with walkers as well. So, you know, he's capturing, again, he's being very inclusive, capturing all age ranges as well as genders. So.
Seems like a lot of his paintings have one single figure in them.
Well, usually they have two. Like there's a figure
Doorway
inside.
there across the lake.
Yeah, there's almost always somebody in the building looking out, or you know,
Walking out.
not just the person outside. And that's kind of one of the things interesting in painting. You find these little kind of like subplots and stories.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Praying mantis.
Interesting how he's gone to childlike tree painting.
Right. Yeah. Kind of made things very flat and kind of graphic, almost color book.
Right. All right.
There's
Children
that
painting.
woman with the walker.
Yep. The aliens have landed.
And more to come.
A very moving painting.
How big it is compared to, you know, how big a cow is. Look at the size of that thing.
Is that a self-portrait?
I don't know. Yeah, no idea. But now, does his work remind you of anybody that we've looked at before?
Surrealism. A
Yeah.
little.
But is there any particular artist that comes to mind? Another contemporary painter?
Is it this year's, just since I've been here?
No, you wouldn't. Yeah, it would have been well before you started. Sydney.
Okay.
But the initials are BB.
Hmm. My goodness. You're going back to the reptilian age.
Yeah, notice the people inside the building.
Yeah.
Well, he must have had an unhappy marriage or something, or wished he hadn't married. I don't know. He had
Sure.
something against gods.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of fetuses back there in the background, so.
Yeah.
That dress is beautiful.
Well, it's well done, but I don't know.
Yeah, visually they're kind of pleasing, but at the same time they're kind of disturbing.
Yes. What's he carrying? Oh, it's a gun, not a guitar.
Yeah,
It's a gun. I see it.
and he's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Right out of the 1940s movies. What was that? Some
Yeah.
Mars. Another Star Wars reference. I'm holding a Budweiser.
buys these? I would like to know who buys these paintings.
That would be a good question, but I don't really know a lot about him, but from what I've gathered, he's fairly well collected, and he's not
He's
very.
well collected?
Yes.
This looks childish to me. Yeah.
No,
It looked kind of morbid, like somebody'd pick up a gun and shoot everybody at the mall. Well, and the bride is, I would like to hear what that means to him, the bride. To me, a bride is hope, but no.
Well, maybe it is,
No, because the bride, the man is outdoors cooking alone, and there is the bride. I would think the bride is disturbing him.
Right. But in earlier depictions of that theme, he had the bride surrounded by a pack of wolves, or not wolves, but coyotes. So, maybe it's that optimism or hope, but again, it's that there's something menacing, about to happen.
Well, the symbolism of the storm is that life, there's always a storm coming. Or you're in a storm.
Stealth fighter.
You weren't talking about Barbara Bradley, were you?
No.
Couldn't think of any other BBs.
Bo Bartlett. Remember him?
Who?
Bo Bartlett.
Now there's the bride with the wolf. Okay, Charles. Necessarily. Charles, could you go back to the bride and the wolf?
Let's just let it play through. Yeah.
Maybe the groom is the wolf.
Yeah, he's done a couple, along that theme.
He must not like females very much.
Pardon?
He must not like females very much.
Well, she was just sitting there looking at a skull of a
Yeah,
triceratops.
but notice her hair is the same color as the bone.
It's the bone. Yeah.
I mean, if you piece it all together, it just reminds, I don't know, psychologically, he's really in tough shape. Wow.
Here we are, on the rocket ship to Mars or the moon or somewhere. He makes a lot of references to old movies. Particularly like old horror movies like this one. There was actually I think a 1950s film kind of about a giant crab that came ashore and did that. Tore up the city.
They painted giant crabs, dinosaurs. There was something else.
There's that lady in the walker. Actually, there's two ladies in the walker out there on the.
How about the little houses? Does that mean your little world, your little security is the little small town houses?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think different people will see different things in these.
What do you see in it?
I see,
big birds, big chickens.
I see trouble is coming.
Trouble is coming?
It's like kind of everybody is trying to go about their normal lives every day, but there's something brewing on the horizon. Bad things are about to happen.
So why would you want to buy this painting?
Well, I personally would
Yes.
probably not. But there are people and institutions who might want to collect something like this.
There's a few that I thought were beautiful.
Oh, I think.
Yeah.
think
I
every
don't
one of
find
them
it offensive.
are beautifully painted. The subject matter, the underlying message is disturbing, but beautifully painted. And that's
What's beautiful about it? Do you think this is, wait, it looks childish. A lot of it looks childish to me.
Yeah, but a lot of times, he doesn't do that in all of his paintings, but in some he's gone back and, as you said, like here the monsters are sort of more like from a child's.
This looks like a child would do. Not my children.
Yeah, well, but then look at the storefronts. Children wouldn't do that. Oh, here.
Well, an older child would. A younger child wouldn't do. Now here's the bride.
Mhm.
There goes the bride.
Well, not just
Brides.
Brides. And the 6 coming down from that spaceship.
Oh, wow.
This man needs a psychiatrist.
Well, you never have seen a dead.
Maybe that's why he doesn't
on the
need one. He
beach.
paints it so to get it out of his system. I don't know. It's ridiculous. I don't like it.
This is just the opposite of those paintings with the angels,
right,
which I don't care for that either.
right.
Yeah.
But they do get you to thinking, don't they?
What, this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to think like this.
Well, you kind of scratch your head and kind of like.
Well, life is short. I don't.
Yeah. But they kind of make you ask questions like, what is he trying to say? What is.
Yeah, well, my house.
Spider.
I mean, what's
Crap.
different than, say, like Salvador Dali or even Picasso?
Right.
I mean, they're not representative of what's.
Let me tell you the tragic life story of Zdzislaw.
Yeah, we're not going to go back to see.
Dystopian surreal.
Well, come on. All right. So, what did you get?
What was his name? Did we ever figure it out?
Yes, John Broslow, Broslo.
Okay.
I thought it was I-O.
I-O.
Where's the O? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he American?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
It was published.
Brosio. I stand corrected.
Is he's American? He must be with the
I believe so. Yeah.
with the type of things that he paints.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of telling. I mean, he certainly, I don't know that he comes from the Midwest or Middle America, but he's not painting like large cities and stuff like that. He's painting a lot of small towns, kind of rural sort of environments.
And so many of the buildings are the same.
Yeah.
They might change color or have
Yeah.
a different name on it,
But look, if you drive, west toward Alabama, it's like once you get out of the Atlanta area, it's like every little small town that you go through, they kind of all look the same.
Yeah.
The architecture is very much so the same. The houses are all kind of the same. So, yeah.
The difference is when I go through a small town, I look for interesting buildings and don't paint the same buildings.
Right. Yeah. But again, what's his
It's
intention?
all a matter of personal taste.
Yeah. But
That's all.
it goes back to what is he trying to do? And see, he's using that architecture in those places as something that would be familiar to anyone who probably comes from the 21st century in America today. They would look at that and they would easily be able to identify where that is. You know,
So that you're not safe.
yeah. The overall message is yes, yes,
You're not safe.
yes. That something's coming, and it doesn't matter how much you walk around and ignore it. You know, there's something on the horizon coming, and so, you know, maybe the overall message is wake up, look around, you know, see what's going on. I mean, you can interpret it a lot of different ways, right?
What about the bride?
I'm not sure, you know, again, and I think Naomi kind of hit on it slightly, that it's, I guess it's hope.
And innocence.
Innocence.
The bride is innocent.
Yeah, innocence and hope for the future, and yet it's kind of surrounded by all this darkness, right?
The one with the wolves, the bride with the wolves. That means the husband to be is a wolf.
Not necessarily, but there's some danger out there. There's something
that marriage is dangerous.
Maybe, you know, yeah, maybe that's
could be.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think there's 1,000 different ways you can interpret that. So.
I found a John Brush show.
Yeah.
Yeah, he spent 3 years chasing those tornadoes all around the Midwest.
Oh, gee. That's a sick person.
No, I mean, there are people who get paid to do that if you're a meteorologist. So,
Miss Jean, do you want to go to the tornado alley?
You want to go spend time chasing tornadoes in a van, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on, and this will be the last thing that we watch today. We won't get to the final one because we won't have time. But another modern art movement that you can see your head about. Just to let you know what's out there.
You can keep those
Pardon?
under your belt. I said you can keep those under your belt.
Steampunk artwork.
No, you guys need to know about it.
Okay. What means steampunk?
Steampunk.
Uh-huh.
Well, you like to Google things, Google it.
Yeah, I Google everything.
A plane or a boat. I could be.
But if you look at these images, you'll notice that they're sort of technocentric, right? Machines, you know, kind of futuristic machines, but at the same time, they don't look like modern machines. They look like something out of Jules Verne, right?
They look like that movie with that Mad Men with Tina Turner. Remember?
Mad Max?
Yeah, Mad Max with Tina Turner. Yeah, they got those.
Yeah. Yeah, these don't really look post-apocalyptic. They, you know, they're somewhere between Star Wars and Mad Max, I guess. You got a floating city there.
More like Dune.
You're supposed to write today.
A shark.
A typewriter on his wrist.
Precursor to the computer.
Frankly, I like Dick Tracy's watch on his arm better.
Oh.
Wow, the detail in this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is done by a variety of artists. So
Oh,
this is not just one artist. This is a, and this is a current art movement that's going on right now, as we speak.
some of these look like paintings and others, for instance, like this one,
Yeah,
looks like it's a photograph of something that was built.
right, yes. Some of these are actually models of, machinery and things, yes. Like that's an actual guitar
Yeah.
somebody made. And again, there's different artists, different craftsmen working, in this genre or style.
So Charles, who buys this art?
Well,
Steampunk enthusiasts?
Some people like it.
yeah, there's a lot of people right now who grew up on sci-fi and fantasy, and a lot of them collect work like this, and they collect a lot of the old illustration work. It's become very, very popular, very marketable.
This is beautiful.
And again, the technical skill, the rendering, everything is, it's really beautiful artwork. It's just, it may not be your particular taste, but, certainly the skill level and everything is there.
Oh, okay.
And if we're looking at just the sheer ability to Visualize. We talked a lot about that Friday. You know, visualization, being able to see something in your head. And you almost have to, you know, have some kind of image in your head to create stuff like this. I mean, imagine, if you could, trying to create something like this, you know, trying to create this whole world. You know, the atmosphere, the landscape, you know, the atmospheric conditions, the architecture, any of the machinery or people involved. You know, even the trees and the plants, you know, so natural elements and then man-made elements. It would be quite a task. Evidently London at some point.
Reminds me of a long time ago when they used to try to paint the futuristic stuff that they thought would be coming out.
Right. Exactly that. Only this is, it's kind of, I guess the whole movie is kind of retro. It's like, well, what would have happened if we never advanced past steam engines and everything was powered by steam still, rather than like gas-powered engine? So it's kind of mixing that late 1800s industrial aesthetic with, you know, modern aesthetics.
Jules Verne.
Yeah, Jules Verne. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, we got about another 13 minutes of this, but it's
Did you see that they called it steampunk
Yes.
artwork?
yeah, steampunk.
Boy, there's a lot of imagination and a lot of talent there.
Yes, there is, and I would encourage any of you to, do a little research.
Punk.
But you see, it's a big world out there. There's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Wow.
See? And so there's a little something for everybody.
Yeah.
And, that's what today is about, is try to,
There you go, Charles. Bye-bye, everybody.
well, trying to introduce you to some new things you hadn't heard about before or maybe aren't that familiar with, so that you can at least take a look at it, right? And maybe you could get something from it, right?
Yep.
There you go. So, anybody got anything that we need to cover before we go away?
Are you going plein air painting this Thursday?
We
maybe?
are. Yes, we are, and we're going to go. Yeah, we're going to go to Heritage Park in Sandy Springs. It's very close to you. Okay, you've been there before.
I think I was there once.
You were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we're going to go to Heritage Park this week. And the weather prognosis is about the same as it was last week.
As last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I just looked. That's the reason I asked. Because it's very difficult to get a ride on the spur of the moment. When you got 200 people they give rides to, roughly,
right?
It's hard to get a ride sometimes. That's
Yeah.
the reason I try to ask you where and ahead of schedule.
Yeah, I'm going to be sending an email out this afternoon about Heritage Park and how to get there and everything else. But luckily there is a big covered gazebo in case it does start pouring down rain that we can all hunker under and wait out the rain.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless it's lightning and thundering, and I don't want to be outside.
Yeah,
like it was last week.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I know. I was sitting there in the car, and watching.
I know you were there.
Yeah, watching stuff blow by, with a 40-mile-an-hour wind. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
But the darkness and the lightning is what got me.
Yeah. Well, where I was at the time wasn't lightning at the time, but it was just the high wind and literally buckets full of rain coming down. And it wasn't coming straight down.
Well,
it was literally almost moving sideways. So
I'm less than 5 miles from there, and it was pouring, and it got like midnight at look, and lightning. You could see the lightning come down, and the thunder you could hear. So that already was very, very frightening.
Well, it was, I was there, and up under that shelter, I mean, you could look out across the river. And in a way, the sky was really dramatic and beautiful, but it was, just ominous. So, not a good place to be.
Worth getting down.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I hope all of you have a good rest of the day. We'll be back here tomorrow morning. Or no, tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, at 2:00, okay? And so hopefully some of you can join us for that. And if you've got work, Karen, that you can send in, then just, send it to me and we'll put it in the lineup, okay?
Charles,
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about Friday's picture of the lily. Did you send that out?
I did.
Yes.
Would you resend it? I did not get it.
I'll be happy to send it to you, sure.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
It was with a group of about 8 different pictures.
Yeah, I sent, I'll forward the email on to you, okay, Rebecca?
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought I'd got you on the list, but maybe I didn't, so. Okay, anyway, anybody else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I actually enjoyed this.
Yeah, I did too.
Good.
Thank you, Charles.
Well, Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.